Roberto Busa is considered one of the founding fathers of the digital humanities. Why is that? Well, it goes something like this. Roberto Busa was a student of philosophy and of theology. Around the time of his graduation from the Papal Gregorian University of Rome with a thesis on St. Thomas Aquinas, Busa had started toying with the idea of a kind of text search through the works of St. Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the name, was a 13th century Dominican friar and Catholic priest who is remembered as one of the great scholastic philosophers and theologians. So, with a seemingly innocuous agenda, Roberto Busa started on his magnum opus. At the beginning, he was working principally with index cards, like many researchers prefer to do even today, listing the various words used by Aquinas in their varied forms. This was to be known as the Index Thomisticus. In 1949, Busa happened to meet one Thomas J. Watson, who is the founder of IBM. They decided that they were interested in each other's work and that they had something to gain from collaborating. After 30 years, the collaboration bore fruit and the index was finally launched. You can see the web resource here that was launched in 2005, and you may explore it by yourself once you have listened to the lessons offered here. Therefore, as you can see, by one view of history at least, the digital humanities has its root in a computational impulse, a desire to search through enormous quantities of text without too much human effort or without wasting much time. Let us take a moment here to remind ourselves that in saying so, we are touching upon a broader debate that is taking place around the digital humanities, as mentioned earlier by Dr. Shobhik Mukherjee. That is, what should the digital humanists be focusing on right now? Should they be studying texts that require digitization and archiving before they can be subjected to digital analysis, or should they rather be looking at contemporary digital cultures and, in a sense, born digital material that lends itself much more easily to digital analysis? How does one search through data? There are several ways, several degrees of complexity associated with the process of a search. As Dr. Spandana Bhomik will tell you in her video lecture, one can go from a very basic search tool provided with, say, Notepad, to the Google search. We must remember that search tools can be advanced not only in the sense that it can go through vaster and vaster amounts of data, but they can also be advanced in their functions, that is, both quantitatively and qualitatively. Why at all do we need a computerized search? The answer is fairly obvious, but if we are born into a world that comes with a Control-F option, we do not often recognize the principles that lie at its root. A telephone directory is a list of names that has an obvious ordering principle. The names of all those who have phones in a particular region are arranged alphabetically. But that is not the order in which people in a town live. The directory compiles all this information that is spread out at random in a city or a town or a village and orders it so that it is easy to find what one is looking for. Likewise, in the case of a concordance, that is, an index of the words used by a certain author or group of authors, we have the various words that have been used by, say, Shakespeare, organized alphabetically. This arrangement may also indicate the number of times a particular word has been used. If it is quite advanced, It may even offer the specific contexts. But as I am sure we all realize, including all this information in the form of a paper book will require an enormous volume. A volume that would be hard to keep on one's bookshelf, unwieldy and possibly quite expensive. If you go to this website, Open Source Shakespeare, you will find a fairly clever concordance tool. Let's say we want to look for occurrences of the word blood in Shakespeare's works. There you go. It occurs 673 times in that exact form. Then you can see how many occurrences there are in each of his plays. And if you click on a particular play, you will find all the references given with their contexts. But human language is not all that simple. A simple search tool, such as the one provided with Notepad, will only search for the exact characters, for the exact binary values that you have entered, for matches in the original text. If you search flee, it will reveal only occurrences of the character F, L, E and E in that exact order. What if you want to know about the past form of the verb as well? Fled. If it is a weak verb, that is, where the change in tense is reflected only with the addition of a suffix, ed or d, the case is simpler. If you search for save, then all occurrences of the word saved will also show up because the 4 letters in that order occur in saved as well. But if it is a strong verb like give, what then? Likewise for adverbs like little, that cannot be modified to mean a comparative or superlative form with the addition of er or est, as in hard, harder, hardest, but have their specific forms, it becomes a problem. For these, there are 2 mechanisms that are used, and these are definitions worth bearing in mind before entering into further complexities as highlighted by the following lecture. The first and more basic form is called stemming. Since the 1960s, programs have been written for the computer to try and understand the basic forms of words without inflections, that is, the suffixes that reflect changes in tense or comparative magnitude. At a basic level, a stemming involves a suffix stripping, as it is called, where the ing will be removed from stemming. It may, in the process, reduce it to a word that has no independent existence. These algorithms are relatively simpler to write but produce results that are not that sophisticated. A more complex process is lemmatization. Lemma is the base form of a word, say drive. In the process of lemmatization, the computer reduces the word that is entered in the search box to its lemma. It works out the different forms that can exist for it, even if they are not distinguished only with an ed suffix. For drive, it would be expected to find drove as well. Or even more sophisticated, a search for the adverb well would reveal also the comparative form better. There are many other complexities that arise, and the demands of a humanities scholar who has learnt of the wonders of computation are truly limitless. They have gone so far as to create programs where the computer looks at a translation of a text, say Greek, into English, and offers the exact corresponding words in the 2 languages, even if they are not in order in a sentence. Say in Ami bhat khabo and I will eat rice, the order of the words are not the same. Ami or I is at the beginning in both. But in the English translation, will eat, 2 words take the second place, as opposed to khabo, which is at the end, and bhat or rice takes third place as object, as opposed to bhat, which is in the middle of the Bangla sentence. The program will be able to work out from the syntax of the two languages which word corresponds to which. You can read more about these in your reading material. Dr. Spandana Bhaumik will also speak to you about collation, or the practice of comparing various versions of a text to see what changes they have undergone over time. This too is dependent at its root on the search tool, accompanied by a match tool. There are tools also for finding dissimilarities rather than similarities, but we will come to know of these from the following lecture and from Professor Shukanto Chaudhuri's discussion of textual mining and analysis. Before we get into Dr. Bhaumik's lecture, it is also worth gathering a basic sense of how a web search works. To put it simply, a search engine such as Google makes use of automated robots called crawlers. These crawlers visit the ever-increasing pages on the web, decipher their codes, and store blocks of information in databases that a search engine has spread all over the world. The moment a user enters a search command, the engine looks through these bits of information in the blink of an eye and produces all occurrences of that search phrase or similar items in the web pages. It is possible to make your website or your blog more friendly to these search engines with the use of tags. If you write on lemmatization, you could use tags to describe what your post is about. So if anyone doesn't know what the exact phrase is but searches using descriptive words such as word, root, suffix, algorithm, and so on, the search engine will find all these matches in your article and bring them to it. Things get more interesting when we don't know the spelling of a word, and Google has to offer us a "Did you mean?" option. Sometimes it gets it wrong. The bottom line is that a computer is not very intelligent in itself, as a result of which it does not have an intuitive understanding of language. A mechanically produced work of literature which follows every rule of grammar, syntax, and inflection will be searchable much more easily. But if it is a work that is in a highly personalized language, say the poetry of Gerard Manley Hopkins or James Joyce's infamous Finnegan's Wake, a computer has still some way to go. The interesting things for human beings is that while trying to teach a computer how human languages work, we are being forced constantly to revise our own understandings of language in order to explain to a computer better. But once we can make it understand, a computer can look through enormous chunks of data far quicker than we as humans are able to do. It is perhaps because the linguistic skills of a computer have evolved over time to a great extent that students of linguistics and literature use them as much as they do. Fields such as history, philosophy, sociology, or political science make use of these tools too in very interesting ways. It is argued, however, that these projects of helping or aiding literature scholars is not what the DH are meant to do, that it should focus more on the study of digital cultures. Increasingly, more and more information that we put up on the web comes with their tags. Think of the commonly used hashtag that is originally for sorting data that is similar, or the tag you can make for your blog post. For material that is not born digital but is digitized, such as large collections of medieval texts, this tagging needs to be done afresh. Perhaps the DH can and will be able to accommodate within its folds all the varied demands that scholars make of it and enrich our readings of both contemporary and past events.